We are just days away into the start of the 2023 NBA Draft, and it could go down as one of the most anticipated in recent memory. Most experts look at this as a deep class, full of talent at multiple positions. But there will be no suspense over the number 1 overall pick this year. The San Antonio Spurs have their pick locked in, and it's been that way since the draft lottery. The drama really starts at number 2. There are some teams in the top 10 that want to use their pick and trade it and bring in a proven veteran, and there's others that want to keep their pick to either start or continue a rebuild. There's been a lot of speculation around the league about players that could be on the move. Players like Damian Lillard, Zion Williamson, and Bradley Beal. Having a trade that includes one of those guys could cause chaos at the NBA draft. And I'm sure every NBA fan will be here for it. More drama, more entertainment. This will be my first and only mock draft for the 2023 NBA draft class. Last season was the San Antonio Spurs' 50th anniversary season, and there was nothing that happened to this team last year that was a surprise. The Spurs fans have rarely seen their team struggle to the magnitude that they did last season, and it was definitely one of the worst seasons in franchise history. But it was expected. After trading away DeJounte Murray last offseason, the Spurs were officially in a full rebuild. The front office did see some success in player development, and they have been accumulating a lot of assets in the last couple of years. And one of the biggest moments of the season was a game against the Golden State Warriors that broke the attendance record at the Alamo Dome. That excitement could be very common for this team after they make their first pick this upcoming Thursday. There hasn't been a prospect that was guaranteed to be the number 1 pick after the draft lottery since LeBron James. This decision was already made regardless of which team won the draft lottery. This is no debate. And with the first pick in the 2023 NBA draft, the San Antonio Spurs select Victor Wembanyama from France. He has been described as one of the most unique and arguably the best teenage basketball prospect the world has ever seen. Wembanyama could eventually become the best offensive and defensive player in the league. He stands just over 7'4" in shoes with a near 8-foot wingspan. He has the length of a center and the fluidity of a perimeter player. His defense is something that will translate on day one. He is the best shot blocking prospect since Anthony Davis. He possesses a terrific sense of timing and positioning and has strong anticipation. And he also doesn't really need to elevate to impact shots at the rim, which can keep him out of foul trouble. He only averaged 2 fouls per game this season and can alter some shots by just sticking his arms up. His offense has improved year by year, and it took a significant leap this past season. He has the size, agility, and skill set to be one of the best scorers in the league in the future. He loves to pull up jump shot, and he's also added a sidestep and step back that will give him plenty of space to get a good look. Wembanyama has great footwork and the skill level to be a good low post threat, but the lack of strength in his lower body and his high center of gravity will make it difficult for him to keep low post position after catching the ball inside. And he also can be forced to take tougher shots than he should. But there's no doubt that Wembanyama should ascend to the top of the NBA sooner rather than later, if he can stay healthy. The San Antonio Spurs are set up to contend with all the draft picks they have acquired over the last couple of years, ton of future cap space, and the drafting of Victor Wembanyama. After losing in the play-in tournament for 2 consecutive years, it seemed that the Charlotte Hornets would continue to move in the right direction and finally make the postseason for the first time in the LaMelo Ball era. But those hopes quickly took a turn with the Miles Bridges situation, and the team failed to make any significant moves last offseason, and that was capped off by an injury to LaMelo before the season. It was over before it even got started. Due to multiple ankle injuries, LaMelo only played 36 games last season, but this team still has somewhat of a bright future. With another high draft pick added this year and future cap space, the Hornets could begin to turn things around as soon as next season. With the second pick in the draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Brandon Miller from the University of Alabama. The 6'9" wing was one of the best freshmen in college basketball this past season. He made 38% of his three-pointers, with about 7.5 three-pointers attempted per game. He helped lead Alabama to the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. He's the ideal wing player for the modern NBA. He moves fluidly with the ball, constantly attacks defenders off the catch, and has a silky smooth jump shot. He can create looks for himself off the dribble, and is really comfortable with step back and sidestep three-pointers. On the other hand, Miller did struggle a lot during the NCAA tournament, including a 3 for 19 shooting performance in Alabama's season-ending loss to San Diego State. But bad performances in the NCAA tournament does not determine how good a prospect is going to be in the future, especially if it's a freshman. He still has the skills and the ideal size at his position. Miller did score a career-best 41 points on the road in a win against South Carolina. His 41 points is tied for 7th most in school history. On the defensive end, he showed the ability to contain guards at the point of attack, and he should be able to switch 1 through 4 in some matchups. He can be just as versatile on defense as he is on offense. He's a natural fit for any team in the league. I believe Miller does have the talent to justify being picked 2nd overall, and could be a multiple-time All-Star if he continues to put the work in. The Portland Trail Blazers reached the NBA playoffs 8 consecutive seasons with Damian Lillard from 2013 to 2021, but have missed the postseason 2 years in a row. You could have made the injury excuse 2 years ago, but last season, it was clear that this roster wasn't good enough to compete for a playoff spot. With Damian turning 33 this summer, the Blazers have definitely reached a crossroads. Make the roster moves necessary to contend with him, or trade him and start a rebuild that should have began years ago. In order for this team to get back to playoff contention, this team needs proven veteran players right now. Don't waste another year thinking that Dame can carry this team that doesn't have another start to the playoffs. I don't see a scenario where the Blazers draft and keep the 3rd overall pick and also keep Dame. It's either trade the pick to get legit help for Dame, or you keep the pick and trade Dame and start the rebuild. With the 3rd pick in the draft, the Portland Trail Blazers select Scoot Henderson from the G League Ignite. There are some that believe that this guy is the 2nd best prospect in the draft. You could make the argument that he's the most complete guard in recent NBA draft history. He checks a lot of boxes as a future NBA star. He has quick twitch athleticism, good quickness, good body control, excellent court awareness, and the ability to score from anywhere on the court. He's only 6'2", but that's irrelevant because of his long wingspan at 6'9" and world-class athleticism. He can elevate with power and finesse around the rim. There aren't too many glaring weaknesses in his game right now. He has a clean pull-up jump shot, he's comfortable in pick and rolls, and he is almost impossible to contain once he puts his head down and drives to the lane. He can change speeds on a dime, and his first step is up there with the best NBA guards. Henderson is not often praised for his defense, but he does have a lot of potential on that end also. The quickness and determination are there, but Henderson will have to get better at using his unique physical gifts and translating them into consistent defense, rather than gambling or looking for the highlight block shot. The Houston Rockets have been at the bottom of the Western Conference for 3 straight seasons, and to close out last year, they had a 22-60 record, and that marked another rebuilding year with little improvements under the coaching of Stephen Silas, who just completed his 3rd year as the Houston Rockets head coach, compiling only 59 wins and 177 losses. The Rockets have a lot of young talent on this roster. The trio of Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., and Alperen Sengun are nice building blocks that should pay dividends sooner rather than later. At least show steady progress to get a front office confidence to continue moving forward with these 3 young guys. Getting a proven voice in the locker room had to be the next move. Stephen Silas out, Ime Udoka in. There should be no more excuses for this team to continue to sit at the bottom of the conference. With the hiring of Udoka, you got a guy that has taken a team to the NBA Finals and is a proven leader. There has been some speculation about James Harden coming back to Houston, which could be a good move, but it also could be a bad move. With Smith and Şengün in the front court, I see the Rockets either drafting a playmaker or a prospect on the wing. With the 4th pick in the draft, the Houston Rockets select Amen Thompson from Overtime Elite. Amen describes himself as being more of a point guard, but has plenty of experience playing off the ball, which will give the Rockets a lot of versatility in the backcourt. His freakish athleticism will help him to affect games on both ends of the court. He has the length and wingspan to protect the rim when needed, but he also has the speed and quickness to guard on the perimeter. Having switchable defenders is very valuable in today's NBA, and it's easy to see why Amen is such a highly touted prospect. This past season, he was very efficient from the field overall, but he only shot 23% from 3 and 64% from the free throw line. But his combination of elite athleticism, ball handling, and playmaking at 6'7" could give him the edge as the best prospect outside the top 3. Coming into the year for the Detroit Pistons, there was hope for a step forward with their young core to maybe push towards the play-in tournament, very similar to what OKC and Indiana did last season. But when Cade Cunningham went down, everything changed. The hope of challenging for the play-in spot went right out the window. Detroit hasn't had a winning record since 2016, when Reggie Jackson, Tobias Harris, and Andre Drummond led the Pistons to 44 wins. This team has went through just 2 head coaches since then, Stan Van Gundy and Dwayne Casey, and another change has been made. Monty Williams will step into a similar situation that Ime Udoka is in. Both have led their teams to the NBA Finals and is looking to guide and teach the young players how to win consistently in this league. With the 5th pick in the draft, the Detroit Pistons select Ausar Thompson from Overtime Elite. Ausar has a great feel for the game, a high basketball IQ, and a professional's maturity. He has similar athleticism and defensive potential as his twin brother. He should be able to guard positions 1 through 3 in the NBA. Azar's lateral quickness creates problems for the opposing players on both ends. He has a great first step off the dribble and a great ability to not only get to the rim, but also finish. Ausar averaged around 16 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2.5 steals, and 1 block per game during this past season. And he did win the regular season MVP award. And he also was named the Finals MVP for the 2nd straight season after winning his 2nd championship with the Overtime Elite's City Reapers. Just like with his brother, outside shooting is something he needs to continue to work on. Some scouts see some major issues with his shooting technique, and also shot selection is a problem. This will be a focus area for him to continue to grow and hopefully further develop over time. The Pistons have their backcourt of the future with Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. And the Pistons also have plenty of promising young bigs on the team in Isaiah Stewart, Jalen Duren, and James Wiseman. Ausar Thompson is versatile enough to play the 2 and the 3. The Orlando Magic are one of the youngest teams in the NBA, and last season they started the year off at 5-20, and look poised to once again be one of the worst teams in the league. But they made a turnaround, and ended the season playing their best basketball in the last couple of years, finishing 29-28, while ranking 6th in defensive rating in that time period. Paolo Banchero proved the franchise right that he should have been the number 1 pick last year. The Rookie of the Year led the team in scoring, as he went for 10 or more points 40 times last season. The Magic fans should feel optimistic that they can contend for a playoff spot in the East next season. Several important players missed games due to injury last season, including Jonathan Isaac and Markelle Fultz. I wouldn't be surprised if either player would be in the team's future plans after next season. The Magic have the extreme luxury of quality players at every position. There is speculation that a few teams in the top 10 are looking to trade their picks for a proven veteran player. Orlando might be one of those teams, especially because they have 2 lottery picks. Even though the Magic have several young guards on the roster, there's a league point guard prospect that might be too good to pass up. With the 6th pick in the draft, the Orlando Magic select Anthony Black from the University of Arkansas. Black is built like a wing, He's 6'7" with a 39-inch vertical and tremendous basketball instincts. He's the perfect Orlando Magic prospect. The franchise loves positional size and versatility. Black was amazing on defense in his 1 year at Arkansas, and he's one of the savviest playmakers on the board. He has drawn some comparisons to Lonzo Ball and Josh Giddey. Black won't dribble the air out of the ball. He tends to make quick decisions. He either drives to the rim or keep the ball popping. The NBA seems to be going more and more with size these days, and you can't coach that. And it gives you a bigger starting point to develop from. And you add to the fact that Black has only been a full-time basketball-only player for a year. He was a football star in high school, and he had several offers from Power 5 schools. And plus he plays soccer also. He should take a major leap over the next 2 or 3 years in his development. He's just starting to scratch the surface of his abilities. Given his height, he can also slide to the wing position in certain lineups, which will allow playing time for other guards on the team like Fultz, Jalen Suggs, and Cole Anthony. The Indiana Pacers gave their fans a little glimpse into the future with how they started the season last year. It actually looked like this team was going to surprise a lot of experts and make the playoffs. But an injury to their best player simply killed their chances to make a run at the postseason. Tyrese Halliburton went down with an elbow injuries in mid-January, and at the time the Pacers were 23-18, comfortably in a playoff spot. They then proceeded to lose 9 of the 10 games he missed, and they never regained that momentum they had before that injury. But a player like Halliburton, who made his first All-Star appearance, and rookie Benedict Mathurin both give Pacers fans good reason to hope for the future of this franchise. The Pacers are scheduled to have 5 draft picks this year. They have a lot of cap space and a president in Kevin Pritchard who is itching to make some big moves this offseason. The Pacers didn't have much problem scoring the rock last year. It's the other end where they had issues. They finished 26th in defensive rating, including 30th after the All-Star break. Looking at a prospect that could bring a defensive presence to this team could be where the Pacers go with this selection. With the 7th pick in the draft, the Indiana Pacers select Jarris Walker from the University of Houston. Walker is an explosive, defensive-minded power forward who can bring a physical presence immediately in the NBA. Jarris is capable of guarding multiple positions, including 3s and 4s. His foot speed and lateral quickness is good enough to stick with perimeter players, and he's definitely strong enough to hold up in the post. He's one of the best defensive prospects in the draft. On offense, he's solid in a lot of areas. I wouldn't necessarily say he's elite in any particular area either. He's a solid shooter, can handle the ball a little bit, and is a solid playmaker. Walker has a good feel for the game, can set good screens, cut to open areas, and knows how to make winning plays. I could easily see him being an impact role player on a championship level team in the future. He measured at the combine at 6'6" without shoes, but he has an incredible wingspan at 7'2". His standing vertical at 34.5 inches ranked in the 97th percentile of all participants since 2000. His lane agility and 3/4 sprint both ranked in the 75th percentile or better as well. He's basically the same size as Draymond Green, and I'm sure that Pacers fans will be very happy if Jarris Walker can have a similar impact that Draymond brings. For the second straight year, the Washington Wizards finished 12th in the Eastern Conference with a 35-47 record. They missed both the play-in tournament and the playoffs. And for the 5th straight season, they finished under 500. The Wizards were 14-30 against teams with winning records and 21-17 against everybody else. Bradley Beal only played 50 games, and in those games, he averaged less than 25 points per game. When you give a player $250 million, you expect that player alone to be able to have enough impact to carry a team to the playoffs. Missing the playoffs with a roster that ranked top 10 in salaries is totally unacceptable, and changes needed to be made. This led to the firing of general manager and team president Tommy Shepard. Former Los Angeles Clippers general manager Michael Winger is now in charge, and a roster overhaul seems likely with this organization. With the 8th pick in the draft, The Washington Wizards select Cam Whitmore from Villanova University. At 6'7", 235 pounds, Whitmore already has an NBA-ready body and the game to match it. He has defensive versatility and can score in a variety of ways. The first thing that jumps out at you about him is his vertical. He's a freak athlete. At the NBA Combine, Whitmore tied third in the max vertical leap at 40 inches. Carrying 235 pounds and jumping that high is very impressive. He did show flashes of shot-making ability. He does need to work on his shot selection and its efficiency. But Whitmore is only 18 years old right now and far from a finished product. The ease at which he can drive to the basket, play through contact, and finish is pretty remarkable for a player his age. A thumb injury sidelined him for the first 7 games of his freshman season, but he eventually became a starter and finished the season as the Big East Freshman of the Year. After trading away star players like Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, and even Bojan Bogdanovic, most Utah Jazz fans understood that this past season was supposed to be a tanking year. But the Jazz came out firing on all cylinders and shocked the league with a 10-3 start to the season. They continue to outperform expectations through the trade deadline and All-Star weekend. They were definitely in the mix for a playoff spot late in the season. But that momentum slowed down enough where teams like the LA Lakers and OKC surpassed them, and the Jazz ended the season with a 37-45 record, missing the playoffs for the first time since 2016. There were so many positives from this team this past season. Lowry Markkanen became an all-star and played like an all-NBA performer. Walker Kessler solidified himself as a starting center in this league and one of the best rookies. Will Hardy proved himself as a capable coach and motivator. The big man position is definitely solidified for the Utah Jazz. They might look at the wing position or point guard position at this selection. With the 9th pick in the draft, the Utah Jazz select Bala Coulibaly from France. Coulibaly is an 18-year-old forward who's been definitely shooting up the NBA draft boards in the last couple of weeks. He's gone from Victor Wembanyama's teammate to a potential NBA lottery pick. Coulibaly is 6'6" and has a 7'3" wingspan. That length and size, with his athleticism and his young age, provides outstanding long-term potential. In the LNB Pro A playoffs, he showcased his scoring ability against high-level competition. He made a lot of highlight plays, showing off his athleticism. He covers so much ground, and it helps him score easy buckets in transition. While playing with the Mets Pro team, Coulibaly made 14 of 31 three-pointers in the regular season. He has fluid mechanics, and he showed good shot selection, which is very impressive for an 18-year-old playing professionally. Defense is where Coulibaly could really stand out as an NBA player. His great anticipation and active hands lead to a lot of deflections and steals per game. Coulibaly is also a good shot blocker for a wing player, and he consistently contests every shot attempt on the guy he's guarding. But he is still very raw as an overall prospect, and it may take him a couple of years in the G League before an NBA coach puts him into the rotation. He could be a high-level defender who doesn't need the ball in his hands that much to make a difference. Coming off the most successful year the franchise has had since 2011, defeating teams like the first-seeded Phoenix Suns and reaching the Western Conference Finals, the Dallas Mavericks had established themselves as championship contenders going into last season. They were expected to be a surefire team in the playoffs. They didn't get off to a great start, but they were in 4th place in the Western Conference prior to the All-Star break. And after the acquisition of All-Star guard Kyrie Irving, expectations went through the roof, and rightfully so. But it didn't take a genius to predict that the defense was going to suffer when you trade away your best defensive player in Dorian Finney-Smith for an offensive player like Kyrie, who is not known for his defense. But it got so bad for the Dallas Mavericks that they decided to pull Kyrie and Luka out of the lineup to be able to secure this pick right here. Out of all the teams drafted in the top 10 this year, this is the pick I expect to be traded more than any other pick. Defense, defense, defense. Whether they keep this pick or trade it, the Mavericks need to come away with a defensive player regardless. With the 10th pick in the draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Taylor Hendrick from the University of Central Florida. The 6'9", 214-pound forward was a defensive menace in college last year. He possessed good size and length to be able to guard big men in the post, and his length and foot speed allows him to consistently defend wings. Hendricks can jump out the gym. That athleticism, combined with his awareness, made him into a strong shot blocker last season. He can fly out of nowhere and block a shot on the weak side. In 34 games in his freshman season, Hendricks averaged around 15 points, 7 rebounds, and 1 assist, and almost 2 blocks per game, while shooting 39% from three-point range, on just under 5 attempts per game. He can also attack closeouts and finish at the rim. Hendricks is still raw as a shot creator, but he will be an impactful player with his shooting and defense alone. With the 11th pick in the draft, the Orlando Magic select Grady Dick from Kansas University. You can never have enough shooting in today's NBA, and he's arguably the best shooter in this year's draft class. Adding shooting is a priority for the Orlando Magic this summer. The 19-year-old is coming off an impressive freshman season with the Jayhawks. In 36 games, he averaged around 14 points and 5 rebounds, shooting 44% from the floor and 40% from three-point range. Dick is a prospect who doesn't need the ball in his hands that long to make an impact. He has a high and quick release that makes it difficult to block or contest, and you should be able to plug him in right away as a floor spacer in the NBA. Grady Dick competed hard on the defensive end last year. He did force nearly a steal and a half per game in college and showed off some speed at the combine, where he tied for the fastest time in the shuttle run at 2.98 seconds. Bottom line is, Grady Dick will be the perfect fit for the Orlando Magic. He feels a clear need and will easily have a role within the team's offense. Expectations for the Oklahoma City Thunder were very low, especially after the team lost their second overall pick in Chet Holmgren to a season-ending foot injury over the summer. OKC always seemed to compete hard every year, regardless of how much talent they have, but they were able to turn that effort into consistent winning throughout the season last year. OKC has a beautiful balance of rebuilding and developing players, with also the desire to compete and win games. They definitely surpassed expectations last season with a 40-42 record, one win shy of a playoff appearance. This was the same team that most experts predicted that they will be one of the worst teams in the Western Conference. OKC has one of the league's brightest futures, and that can be attributed to young players like first-time All-Star and All-NBA first-team performer Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, who finished second in the Rookie of the Year voting, Chet Holmgren, who was taken second in last year's draft, and Josh Giddey, who has lived up to his 6th overall selection in 2021. These 4 players are the core of the next era of OKC basketball. Question for them is, do they add another young talent to a team with plenty of young talent already, or cash in some of those draft picks they have accumulated over the last couple of years and get a veteran all-star level player? With the 12th pick in the draft, the Oklahoma City Thunder select Derek Lively from Duke University. The one-and-done big man was among the most effective rim-protecting players in all of college basketball last season. While his overall numbers won't jump out at you, he did shine bright defensively, and that's absolutely his biggest strength. The 7-footer blocked 2.5 shots per game last season. He shot 65% from the floor, only 15% from 3, and 60% from the free throw line. He absolutely did not shoot the ball well at Duke University, but he did show some potential from three-point line in high school and at the pre-draft workouts. Lively is incredible in the pick and roll. He loves cutting to the basket, and he's a huge threat in the dunker spot due to his elite finishing ability. He shot 77% at the rim, good enough for the 98th percentile. He's not somebody that you'll run plays for. He might be able to develop an outside shot, but for the most part, his bucket's going to be in the painted area. He's still growing as an offensive player, but his defensive impact is the foundational piece of his game that will translate on the next level. The Toronto Raptors bounced back from not making the playoffs in 2021 to winning 48 games in 2022. so it was definitely expected that this team will compete for at least a top 6 spot in the East. That's what they have done for most of head coach Nick Nurse's tenure with the team. But last year they played 500 basketball through the first 3 months of the season, where they showed flashes of a playoff team, but they also displayed awful play that reminded you of a lottery team. This up and down trend was consistent throughout the whole season, and their loss to the Chicago Bulls in the play-in tournament ended their season as they finished 41-41 and missing the playoffs. This after finishing with the 5th seed the year before. They have won in the past with the same guys they have now, so they had no excuses of missing the playoffs entirely. They are now a lottery team with an uncertain future. They fired their championship head coach Nick Nurse on April 21st, and recently hired first-time NBA head coach and former Grizzly assistant coach Darko Rajakovic, who will be the 10th head coach in Raptors franchise history. This roster could look totally different next season. With the 13th pick in the draft, the Toronto Raptors select Cason Wallace from the University of Kentucky. Wallace is considered one of the best two-way guards in the draft. He is a ferocious defender. He stands 6'3", 193 pounds, with a 6'8" wingspan. He has very active hands and quick feet. He was 4th in the SEC in steals as a freshman, averaging 2 steals per game. Wallace has a solid handle, can work in the pick and roll, and can orchestrate an offense at a high level. But he does lack the speed and burst you need as an offensive creator, and is not necessarily explosive as a half-court scorer. He does provide one thing that the Raptors severely lacked in 2022, three-point shooting. Wallace shot the 3 at Kentucky at a decent clip, with catch and shoot being his best weapon. Regardless of whether Fred VanVleet stays or goes, the Raptors definitely need to add depth at the guard position. Wallace is a hard-nosed defender who's able to play multiple positions and knock down the outside shot. He can come into the NBA right now and start producing. The New Orleans Pelicans have been one of the teams that's been in the spotlight ever since the Nuggets won a championship last week. Should they make a big move or just stand pat? You can make a decent argument in both directions on whether the Pelicans should trade Zion Williamson or keep him. As long as Zion is on the court, the Pelicans look like a serious contender in the Western Conference. Through the first 3 months of last season, the Pelicans were 23-13, tied for second place with the Memphis Grizzlies. And their plus 4.8 net rating was the best in the conference at that moment. Unfortunately, the Pelicans' first game of 2023 was the last one of the season for Zion Williamson, who suffered a hamstring injury. New Orleans went into a complete tailspin from that point forward, ultimately finished the season on a 19-27 run, and losing the play-in game at home to the 10th-seeded Oklahoma City Thunder. This team is clearly well equipped to win many games. They just need their star player to stay on the court. With Zion only playing 37% of the Pelicans' regular season games, at what point does this unavailability become a major concern? Recent reports indicate that the Pelicans have been shopping him around the league to see what they can get for him. The conversations have mostly been around the Hornets in the 2nd pick and the Blazers with the 3rd pick. Regardless if they really want to move him or not, they have been thinking about it. And for the time being, Zion is still a Pelican, and this upcoming season could be a make or break year. With the 14th pick in the draft, the New Orleans Pelicans select Kobe Bufkin from the University of Michigan. Bufkin is a silky smooth left-handed player who showed he can hit a lot of shots in a lot of different ways. He loves attacking the basket and making difficult shots in the lane, especially with his dominant hand. Bufkin is not a pure point guard, but he did show he could play either guard spot in college. He looked comfortable driving downhill off pick and rolls and dribble handoffs, and he showed glimpses of playmaking in his sophomore year at Michigan. His 83% free throw percentage in college is a great indicator that he has good touch. His high release point on his jump shot and his ability to play on and off the ball will allow him to play rotation minutes early in his career. His outside shooting combined with his finishing ability, he could develop into a 3-level scorer in the NBA. He is also a competitive defender. He racked up 43 steals and 23 blocks in 33 games last season. At the combine, he measured in at 6'5" with shoes and a 6'8" wingspan. He is younger than a lot of freshmen in this draft, as he won't turn 20 until September. Bufkin has a well-rounded game and can be effective on both sides of the ball.